Welcome back! This did take a tad bit longer because I was scripting 2 characters, so keep an eye out for the second video today. Also, in other news, I created a map. It is in fact mirrored because camera's got a camera. And there's 2 islands that are not depicted, but I'll draw this when the time comes, and I think we can work with this for right now. And the quick reminder that we'll be going over 7 categories, and I refer to my phone a lot. So, with that in mind, let me tell you about the god of death. Where's pronouns are why, when, where, and where's name is Roren. Where's name comes from rouge, meaning comfort, and rend, meaning end, in Old Igesh. It's hard to describe their appearance because their form kind of shifted during the beginning because Roren was a special case. But what came to be decided across the lands was there is kind of this tall figure that you'll see in the back of your taverns. Kind of sickly skin, almost green, kind of like a reptilian. Scales across the cheekbones, a scar that no one ever was able to get a straight answer for. There are Rowan's ears were very long and great for hearing the spirits beyond the veil. There's also horns, not for particularly any reason. It wasn't to symbolize anything. It was just something that poked through Ware's hood, usually. Wise also had unruly pink hair, and these were like the trademark things that if you saw someone in the back of the tavern who looked like that, your town might be graced with the presence of the death god. So Rowan's origin place was Orgari. This place, as you can see towards the bottom of the map, I didn't write in the ocean, is a small sea town, and it's near Nanfell Bay. There was not much to describe this place. It was a small place, not much to be depicted. They were very self-sufficient, growing their own crops, becoming very good at fishing, and that's where their main food came from. They had fruits that grew on like their coastline. These were Lomac fruit, and the Lomac is special kind of fruit that was able to actually survive a lot of different water types. Although if you put too much salt into its roots, it will end up drying up. But Nanfell Bay was a special kind of case where a lot of the salt in the ocean kind of got filtered out by a barrier underneath. Is that how water works? I will probably fix that in the future when I figure out how water works. But it's a small town. It was kind of like the town where like everyone knew each other. Always saying to have like a cozy feeling. And well, this is where Rowan got Wem's start. Is it Wem? Yeah, where's start? And as Wise is a council of ancient, they have a single domain. Y has a single domain, and that is death. So, where did Rowan come from? Well, simply put it, Orgari was hit with a plague. A plague that they weren't able to combat properly because they have modern medicine wasn't very developed, and usually dealing with disease during these times was very hit or miss. And with something as contagious as this, and something that wasn't able to be contained properly without the great tools, it got widespread throughout the town. So the numbers were dropping, and numbers were dropping, and the dead had to be buried more and more each day. And while they couldn't find anything to improve their situation or improve the health or comfort for those people, they started a burial practice because they didn't know what happened after you take your final breath. So instead of fearing it, they decided to bury the person with 3 of their favorite possessions and a lomac fruit to help them into their journey into this unknown. And as the grave is piled up, Rowan noticed that there was a lot of restless spirits and decided why would take pity on them. So why heard their solemn words of departure, and why saw their offerings, and unlike other gods who just send a gift and watch from afar, Roren actually went into the town. Roren went into town and started living as a citizen, but every time that the final sun set, Y would go into the graveyard and would pass through the veil and guided the spirits to the Underlands. So this actually helped the town because a lot of things in the ancient world was caused by energy. So if you had a lot of restless spirits and a high risk for an unrested to come back, the tragedy would be prolonged. But with Rowan's help of guiding and making sure they was well settled, Y was able to bring down the darker energies that hung over the town, and the plague slowly started to die out. And this helped for other towns too, where the plague was starting to settle. I should explain what unrested is. Unrested is basically our interpretation of like a ghost kind of thing. It's an unrested spirit. An unrested spirit would come back and it would meddle with the natural energies of the town, prolonging what people would call like bad luck. And this bad luck would probably bring undoings to a lot of people. But unrested aren't that hard to deal with in the modern days, because you're able to see not like see, but like know when an unrested is near your town, and then you can take the precautions and finish their undone business, which would put them at peace and finally be able to wander back into the Vale and finally make their journey into the Underlands, which is kind of like a long journey, and a lot of spirits get lost, and that's also what brings them back, because spirits that are clouded by unfinished business are easy to get lost on the road to the Underlands, so they turn back and become unrested. So now that Rowan had settled into this town and was personally bringing these spirits into the Underlands, there was a clear gateway between this town and the Underlands, and therefore there was a clear gateway between the mortal energies and the higher frequencies of the godly lands. So that also helped boost their energy, and they had better harvests, basically. And the plague got removed, and they were able to go back to sustaining themselves and rebuilding what was lost. The town didn't quite know it was the god of death, because, like it was said, Rowan didn't give a gift. Rowan actually went into the town. So it took a few decades until Rowan made Ware's presence noticeable and declared Wyrmself as the god, and finally giving them finally giving them a gift, and that was basically a drink, because drink of the gods, which is called oaken oaken ale. And so the town took this offering and this gift, and they put the god of death onto their altars, because at this point there were also other gods that made their presence known, so they took up that worship. So while the god of death had Ware's start here, Y didn't have a predominant following. Y did get the monthly offerings and the monthly prayers, but it wasn't totally just dedicated to Wem. So, what was the lasting effect of the god of death? Well, before modern medicine, worshipping the god of death or weaving some prayers to the god of death became very popularized, because other civilizations saw what happened in Ograri, I know how to pronounce things, and wanted their own dead to have a safe trip back into their next life. So while there were no temples, there was a few temples, but it wasn't as predominant as making temples to other gods. Altars and offerings were given to Roren from other places. But then modern medicine came in, so you were able to prolong someone's life more. So that's how Rowan's worship kind of trickled off. But there was always that common legend of, if you saw someone with sickly skin and unkept pink hair, especially if it was in a tavern, then your dead was in good hands, especially if your town was going into a tragedy like a famine or a natural disaster. Is a famine natural? No, it's not. Natural disasters are like tsunamis. Of course, not everyone saw death as a good thing, because not everyone thought of the same things. So there were people who thought that if the god of death was in your town, then you were bound for tragedy. And that wasn't entirely correct. Rowan just followed where tragedy went. But Rowan just tried Ware's best to avoid the towns that viewed Ware's presence as a bad omen, and mostly sticking to the ones that found more comfort in Ware's presence. Orgari slowly shifted their worship from Council of Ancients, because, as I mentioned, they didn't just worship Roren, they worship other ancients. And shifted their focus into the god of harvest, like I mentioned in the last video, and the god of medicine. This did help keep their prosperity, but they did always keep Roren in their prayers. It was just not as prominent. Offerings slowed, and most of Wyr's offerings came from big festivals and lingering priests, because if you were a priest, you could still take the route to learn the prayers and the offerings and the rituals to praise the death god, but it wasn't as popular. Y still did Wyr's job and still sits in random taverns during modern times, but when the god of taverns became a prominent god to worship by a specific group of people, Rowan got a drinking buddy. So, good for one. Good for one. So let's talk about sacred items. Even if in god terms, Rowan was a smaller god, Wei got as many sacred items as the rest of the gods. Specifically for Wem, it was Lomac, which, as I said, it's a fruit that thrives through most water types, unless it gets a bit too salty. Purple, Dusk, Oaken Ale, which was Wyr's favorite drink. And I want to tell you the ingredients, but I don't know how drinks are made, so I'll figure that in another time. Because I want to say tree bark, but I need to go into the biology of trees to figure that out. And of course, taverns. So, with these sacred items, we get the 3 offerings. And the 3 prompted offerings would be Oaken Ale, usually drinking during parties or funerals to invoke Rowan's favor, or just leaving out some Oaken Ale on your it's not a shrine. I've been using shrine. We're not going to say shrine for right now because I'm forgetting the word. Wait, it's right here. No, it's not. Okay, no, shrine, sure. And to invoke Wyr's favor, and to be drunk, and to come into your house and lead a passed on loved one to a safe departure into the Underlands. There is, of course, the prayers. There's only 3 specific passages created for Rowan, and Wei didn't get a book or a scripture, but had these 3 passages that Wei made when they were kind of drunk, when Wei was kind of drunk. So Rowan's prayers are more of a drunken story, but it's still something that Wei would answer to. And of course, leaving out Lomac on the... it's bothering me. I don't want to keep saying shrine. Altars! I meant altars. Leaving Lomax next to your Oaken Ale, or eating a part of a Lomac when you are saying the monthly prayers, as that would also call Rowan's attention and would gain favor to actually escort your loved one, because Rowan doesn't escort all spirits. Way escorts the spirits. Way feels has like lived their best life, and that doesn't have a specific criteria, because not everyone has the same opportunities to do their best life. But Way kind of looks at like what you're given, and then decides if you did kind of like your best with what you got. If you like blatantly went out of your way to inconvenience people, then Way would kind of just, then Rowan kind of just like lets you do your own journey into the Underlands, because the road to Underlands would typically show you your faults, and for some extremely morally wrong people, it's almost enough to frighten them back into the Upperlands. And lastly, let's talk about temples and how Rowan, it's actually kind of a special case with Council of Ancients. I think I mentioned prior in the video that Rowan doesn't have a temple. Nowhere really in the time of Wyr's creation, Rowan didn't get a temple. And for many centuries, Rowan didn't get a temple, and Rowan was pretty content with that, because Rowan kind of just viewed taverns to be Wyr's temples, because that's just where Y felt more comfortable and like to hang around in. Also, but the reason why people didn't give Wem a temple was because Wyr's is kind of like a seasonal god. More the fact that people will invoke Wyr's name when they need the guidance. So it's more of a convenience worship, but like of course they still have like the smaller worship, but prominent worship that is centered around Rowan only comes in times of great death, and so kind of seasonal or conditional worship. And then once they stop needing the guidance, the offerings and the prayers go back into more of a smaller monthly thing. So Y's typical place is a corner part of an altar where you would lay oak and nail or lomac. And I already said, but I'll say it again. There are priests who look at the three passages that Rowan said that one night, and learns those, and learns what exactly gets the highest response from Rowan, and sometimes actually have a conversation with Rowan if they are so lucky enough to find Wem in a tavern. So that's the god of death. A very special case among the Council of Ancients. And even though they are worshipped in modern times, Wei didn't get a binary pronoun because it just wasn't really viewed as needed, because this why, when, where was what they all thought of when they gave death. So some priests also end up taking upon those pronouns if that felt comfortable to them, especially the ones that ended up working closely with Rowan. But never got binary pronouns because wasn't prominently worshipped, and only therefore usually for convenience, therefore didn't find the need to give Wem binary. Yeah. I'll see you in a few hours. Not a few hours. I'm probably going to do these back to back. But that's all I really have to say. I hope you enjoyed this video. Kind of stumbled through a few parts. It's fine. We're doing this. Have a great day. See ya.